Imagine, for every blow you land, fate strikes back twice. I hack at the flesh, but the gods just laugh, doubling my nightmare. I'm drowning in rot venom, bones snapping in its claws. I am no savior. I'm a dead man, burning out hope to end this divine sadism.
Forget marble statues. The ancient world was a grim spectacle, run by divine hunters who demanded human sacrifice and destroyed lives on a whim. We're peeling back the layers of their madness. This is Shroud of Lore.
The club whistled through fetid air, shattering spines, yet the monster rejoiced, for every wound only made it stronger, transforming the battle into an endless dance of death. The heavy pelt of the Nemean lion, his new, hard-won armor, clung to his back, its golden fur matted with acidic slime, protecting his spine from the spray of black ichor. Hercules felt his arms burn as he swung again, watching another serpentine head collapse into the marsh with a wet crunch. For a heartbeat, triumph surged through him. Then came the sound, a tearing, bubbling hiss like fat dripping into flame. From the stump of the severed neck, flesh twisted and split into something new. Two heads emerged where one had been, slick with dark ichor, their yellow eyes already fixed upon him with ancient hunger. He had come to Lerna seeking redemption. King Eurystheus, that coward who ruled from behind walls of Mycenaean bronze, had sent him here after the lion, sent him to die, though he called it labor. The Hydra was no ordinary beast. Born of Typhon and Echidna, it carried the hatred of titans in its blood and the patience of serpents in its many minds. 9 heads, they said. 1 immortal. Hercules had laughed at the stories in Tiryns, adjusting the lion's skull that now served as his hood. He was not laughing now. The creature coiled in the shallow waters of the swamp, its massive body blocking out the dying sun. The marsh was a graveyard of trees, their bark dissolved by the beast's caustic breath and the water turned to a stagnant, oily black. Each head swayed independently, watching him from different angles, cutting off every retreat. The stench of its breath, foul and burning, made his eyes water and his lungs ache with every gasp. He had killed things before, lions, boars, and bandits who thought strength was enough. But this was different. This was not a fight. This was punishment wearing the mask of a trial, designed by gods who knew no mercy. Another head lunged with terrifying speed. Hercules dodged, feeling the rush of wind against his cheek, and brought his club down on its skull. The bone caved and the body jerked, but then came that horrible sound of regeneration once more, of flesh mocking death itself as more necks sprouted from the wet ruin. 3 more heads now. 12 in total, where 9 had been. His nephew Iolaus stood at the edge of the marsh, holding their horses, his face pale as bone against the dark, jagged horizon. "Uncle," the boy shouted across the toxic mist. "Fall back. We must think. This cannot be won by strength alone." But Hercules could not fall back. To retreat was to fail, and to fail was to remain stained forever as the man consumed by divine madness. Every beast he killed was a step toward absolution, a necessary sacrifice. Every monster was a prayer written in blood, offered to a heaven that seemed to have forgotten his name. He made his choice. He charged deeper into the mire, the water splashing against his bronze greaves. The Hydra met him with all its heads at once, and Hercules understood too late that he had not been fighting a battle. He had been feeding one. The hours blurred into a nightmare of scales, teeth, and the wet sound of rebirth. Hercules lost count of how many heads he had severed. 20. 30. It did not matter. For every one that fell, 2 rose in its place. His club, seasoned olive wood that had served him against the lion, was now slick with gore that steamed in the twilight air, feeling heavier and more unyielding with every strike. His arms felt like they belonged to someone else, heavy, slow, and disobedient. The Hydra had learned his patterns. It no longer attacked blindly. Instead, Its heads worked in concert, feinting from the left while the true strike came from behind, weaving a web of snapping jaws around the increasingly exhausted hero. One set of jaws finally clamped onto his shoulder. The impenetrable lion's skin held, the fangs sliding uselessly over the divine fur, but the toxic bile seeped through the gaps of the hide where it was stitched. Hercules screamed, not from the pain of the bite, but from the venom that poured onto his skin like liquid fire. He tore free, feeling flesh rip, and staggered backward as his vision began to swim in the humid air. The poison was already working through him, turning his blood to acid. Any mortal man would have died in minutes, but Hercules was not mortal. The divine blood of Zeus warred with the toxin, keeping him alive in a state of pure agony. Then came the crab. It erupted from the mud beneath his feet, massive, its shell the color of dried blood, sent by Hera herself to ensure her stepson's death. Its pincers seized his ankle and squeezed until bone cracked. Hercules roared and brought his club down, shattering the creature's carapace in a single, desperate blow. But the damage was done. He could barely stand now, one leg dragging, one shoulder torn, and before him the Hydra had grown into a forest of swaying heads, each one hungry and patient. "You cannot win," a voice hissed in the back of his mind, resonating through his skull like a fevered dream born of the swamp's rot. He did not know if it was the monster's voice or his own despair whispering in the dark. Every strike makes it stronger. Every effort feeds its immortality. You are not killing it. You are completing it. Hercules fell to one knee in the marsh water, surrounded by descending heads that seemed to savor the moment of his collapse. They had all the time in the world. He did not. He remembered the weight of his past, the madness that Hera had planted in his skull, and the terrible things he had done without knowing. He had sworn to atone. And now he knelt before a beast that could not be killed, realizing the true punishment was not death, but hope. A head struck, and Hercules barely raised his arm in time. Fangs sank into his forearm, and more venom poured into him. The world turned white with pain. From somewhere far away, he heard Iolaus screaming his name. Then came a single word that cut through the fog of agony like a sharpened blade: fire. Hercules blinked, forcing his eyes to focus through the haze. At the edge of the marsh, Iolaus stood holding a burning branch torn from a nearby pine. The boy's hands were blistered, his face wild with desperate revelation. "The wounds!" Iolaus shouted. "They close when you cut, but fire stops the flesh from knitting." Something shifted in Hercules' chest. Hope, that cruel thing he had thought destroyed, flickered back to life. He watched as Iolaus sprinted forward, torch held high, and understood what his nephew was proposing. Not just a fight, but a surgery. Precise, brutal, and final. "Come then," Hercules growled. "We finish this together." They worked as one. Hercules swung his club, caving in a skull, and before the stump could even begin to writhe, Iolaus was there, pressing the fire to the raw wound. The flesh sizzled and blackened under the intense heat. The regeneration stopped. The head did not return, leaving only a charred and smoking neck. For the first time, the Hydra screamed. It was a sound unlike anything Hercules had heard, not the hiss of a serpent but something almost human, almost like grief. The remaining heads thrashed wildly, no longer coordinated, driven by a primal fear. 2 more heads fell. 3. Each one cauterized before it could multiply. Hope surged as Hercules felt strength return to his limbs, borrowed from the knowledge that victory was possible. They were winning. Then the Hydra did something unexpected. It stopped fighting. Its remaining heads drew back, coiling together, and merged into a single massive form that pulsed with a strange, dark energy. At the center of that knot of scales sat the 9th head, the immortal one, larger than the others, its eyes burning with an inner gold light. It regarded Hercules with something that looked terribly like pity. "Foolish son of Zeus," the immortal head spoke, its voice resonating through the marsh like low, distant thunder. You think you are killing me. But I am not a beast to be slain. I am a lesson. Before Hercules could respond, the Hydra's body convulsed. Its remaining mortal heads exploded outward in all directions, diving into the marsh, burrowing into the mud, and scattering like seeds thrown by a farmer's hand into the wind. Every piece of me that touches water will grow, the immortal head said. Every scale that escapes will birth a new Hydra in a different swamp, on a different shore. In 1,000 years, 1,000 Hydras will rise because of what you did here. The realization struck him like a blow. The fire had worked too well. They had won the battle and lost the war. Hercules looked at the countless trails disappearing into the black water and felt his hope turn to ash. Iolaus, he said quietly. The parts that escaped need time to grow. We need to catch the one that matters. He moved faster than the Hydra expected. His club shattered the rocks beneath the immortal head, creating an avalanche of limestone that pinned it to the ground. Before it could react, Hercules dropped his weapon and seized the head with his bare hands. I cannot kill you, but I can bury you so deep you will never see the sun. Hercules dragged the beast to a massive stone that had stood since the Titans walked and lifted it with strength born of rage. Let the coward king say what he will, he smiled as he dropped the boulder, imprisoning the head forever. He then dipped his arrows into the Hydra's gall, claiming its poison as his own. They walked from the marsh as the sun rose, leaving behind the stench of death. If new Hydras did rise from the scattered pieces, Hercules would be waiting. He was done seeking forgiveness, now he sought only the next fight. The club hung heavy, and the poisoned arrows clinked softly as he walked into the morning light.